So navigating the world through apps and technology, I am really excited to be a part of this session. When Moira asked me to moderate it and I saw the list of speakers, I was like, wow, I would love to attend, even if I didn't have the opportunity to moderate it. So today we have a really great mix of individuals from successful tech apps, successful entrepreneurs in the accessibility realm, as well as experienced individuals in the incubator spaces helping kick off accessibility startups. Um, Again, I am so looking forward to hearing all the panelists talk today. I'm going to give a very quick introduction to all of our panelists. It's really hard to do because they have such a vast portfolio, each of them. I'm going to try to pinpoint the highlights of each panelist. After that, I'm going to give it away to each panelist to have about a 10 or so minute talk to talk about their background, their organization. As the panelists are talking, feel free to send away your questions through the chat. We'll do a Q&A after all the panelists have spoken. All these questions will be navigated my way, and I will ask the panelists as soon as we get to the Q&A portion. So if you have any questions, just start dotting them away in the chat section. First off, I'd like to introduce Rob Dotten. He is the Director of Contactless Access and Accessibility Initiatives at Ottawa's premier prototyping incubator, ProtoDev Canada. Rob has long been involved in Ottawa's high-tech community, bringing innovative ideas to accessibility. As part of ProtoDev Canada's management team since 2018, his background in physics, automation, and manufacturing allows ProtoDev to propel customers' projects from ideas to production. ProtoDev develops concepts into manufacturing designs in a myriad of industries, medicine, environment monitoring, and accessibility. Rob will be our first speaker as soon as I give him the reins. So looking forward to your talk, Rob. As well as in this panel, we have Joe Weber. He's a manager of the accessibility solutions of Be My Eyes. So Be My Eyes is the world's largest community support platform, allowing visually impaired individuals to call up free on-demand video support from a vast network of volunteers and companies. Be My Eyes is the largest global community of individuals who are blind or who have low vision and the world's biggest micro-volunteering network. The app is available for iOS and Android in more than 150 countries and across 180 plus languages. Very impressive. I'm excited to hear you talk, Joe. And we also have Maayan Zif. So Maayan Zif is practically a celebrity in the accessibility realm. She is the 2020 Governor General's Innovation Award laureate. She's the founder of AccessNow, a mobile app designed to empower people living with disabilities to live more independently. AccessNow connects people with ratings, insight, and information on the accessibility features and status of businesses and experience in over 30 countries. Living with muscular dystrophy, Maayan channeled her frustration on the lack of accessibility information into motivation and making a difference. Her inspiration was personal and her impact is huge. That is amazing. And lastly, we have Varun Chandak. He is the founder of the Access to Success organization, a not-for-profit that supports the development of assistive tech and future leaders with disabilities. We recently led the launch of ATS Labs, Canada's first accelerator for accessibility startups, designed exclusively to help tech scale, assistive tech scale. His motivation stems from his unfinished childhood search for tech that could help with his hearing loss and Erb's palsy. Varun holds an MBA from the Rotman School of Management and lives in Toronto with his fiance and his hyperactive golden doodle Dash. I tried to do that as quick as possible because I don't want to take time away from all of our presenters. I'm going to first give it to you, Rob. You have the space, so please go ahead.
Perfect. It really was exciting when Enable asked me to speak. We've been doing stuff with Carleton University for a while, and it's been pretty interesting. Accessibility is close to home. My partner, Ki Wang, was struck by a car near waiting for a bus near Carleton University about 16 years ago. And when he overcame that trauma, he was confined to a power chair, but wanted to do more in the accessibility space. And when he started doing that, along came ProtoDev Canada. He found that he had sort of amassed the tools in the company to be able to quick prototyping for people that maybe don't have the skills. They've got the bright idea, but they don't know how to make hardware, software, or the systems that work together. And so that sort of gave us all the tools. And then Dr. Marshall, Dominic Marshall, who's the chair of the history department, and Dean Melway from the Reed Initiative, contacted us because they had an elevator problem. 4 students at Carleton couldn't get to the 4th floor at Patterson Hall. At Patterson Hall, they couldn't effectively use the elevator due to their limited accessibility there. So they'd worked with us in the past doing some dorm room stuff. So they said, "Do you think you could, make an elevator more accessible?" And we said, "We're pretty sure we can." And we sat down and came up with a set of hardware. And what we did, we wanted to make it safe and secure. And so we installed a prototype and started to invite people to try it. Let's see how this works. And then COVID comes down, and we're going to have a lockdown last year. And we thought, maybe we have something here that's not just incredible for accessibility, but at the same time, like curb cutting or accessible ramps that lots of people use to have full accessibility, there are other options. And so we thought, okay, we should shoot a promo video. And we shot a quick video at Carleton. I'm going to play it here and talk about it a little bit, but it was to highlight the automation of elevators because there really wasn't any viable accessibility for elevators. Nothing that allowed you to work as a retrofit or as a posit. Well, I wanted to pause it right here for a sec because the app itself at the time worked very well, but it was great for engineers. It wasn't accessible for everybody, and it wasn't beautiful. It was one of these things is that we wanted to get in the design phase before we rolled out our final app is we wanted to get the feedback from the actual users, the people who needed the enhanced accessibility of this elevator. It was important to have them tell us how they wanted to use it, how it would be most accessible to them. And so we put this video up on the internet and immediately started getting attention. One of the first groups out there that wanted to talk to us about it was Toronto Pearson as part of their accessibility initiative, or not pardon me, as part of their healthy airport, they wanted to deal with some of the COVID issues and bring accessibility. So we decided to go in there. We had this wonderful hardware we made. It used Bluetooth, no Wi-Fi, no networking. You can't hack it. It was designed to be easily as a retrofit, as a new install. And it didn't work for just elevators. It worked for doors. It worked for stop requests on buses. And so we kept refining our hardware. And we made this fully accessible tool for people. You could use your iPhone, your MacBook, all these things to control an elevator or a door or different things. And what we found is it worked really well. And here's another short video of using the app and interacting with an elevator at Pearson. This was the first elevator here, and sort of a screenshot of the app at the same time as one of the keys was to make it for an accessible app, it needs to be easy for people to use and easy to navigate without instruction. If you have to read a manual to use it, there's probably a problem. So what we've done is we've made the interface look like the elevator that people are used to being in. And as you can see, it's pretty smooth and straightforward as far as interactions. So we kept working on the app and refining it, and we wanted to make sure it was easy to install. You can use a QR code. It can be emailed to people. You can download it from the App Store, the Google Play. One of our primary concerns was privacy, safety, and security. We wanted to make sure no one could use it from outside the elevator because the people that needed the enhanced accessibility are in a vulnerable state if they're using our tool to control the elevator. We also don't collect user analytics or user data at all, so there's privacy there. The idea is that the app would be intuitive and work anywhere. Whether you're at Carleton, it works at Carleton. If you want to use it at Toronto Pearson or in a hotel or on a cruise ship or on the bus, the idea is a simple app does the same thing everywhere. So you load one app and it's interchangeable. We also added location-based branding because one of the things it does is it grabs a location. When you're at Carleton, it pops up a Carleton banner. And so you could even use it to label buildings and make them easier for people to find their way so they're more comfortable with where they are. Here's Dean using it at Patterson Hall. Let me see. And the idea is that it doesn't matter whether you're using it to ride the bus. You can use it to use a stop request on the bus. You get to your building and you want to open the door opens. You travel into the elevator and the elevator buttons show up. You can then enter the car of the elevator, ride to whatever floor you need to get to, and utilize the accessible bathroom. The whole idea was we wanted a seamless app so that everybody could be comfortable with it and keep moving as they moved from environment to environment and allowed the so that brings us to what are we doing next? It's all part of the same contactless access platform. We have a new accessible bathroom and secure door module that gets over some of the intricacies of those situations, because there's accessible bathrooms in every environment, and being able to use those without the use of touching is, especially in public restrooms all over the place, it's a high priority, not just from an accessibility perspective, but for all people. We're also looking on the roadmap are notifications when you're near contactless access. So as you're walking down the street, a notification will pop up that the door you're near is contactless access, and you click it and you go in. In multi-use buildings, we're looking at having your floor captured. So if you always go to the office, go through the front door, and you always go to the 23rd floor, there's no need to search for your 23rd floor. After a while, the app will know that the 23rd floor is yours and go from there. As we roll out to bigger and bigger environments, airports, museums, universities, we've been looking at wayfinding potential so that each contactless access could either be added as a beacon or have beacon capabilities built in so that you can sort of fine tune where you're going and how you get there. The other thing will help in our chairs, for example, they always travel the same route. We could open the doors as they get there and then choose the floor on the elevator when it gets to them as well, so that they can ride much more seamlessly with even less interaction with the app. So it's been a very exciting year for us, and we look at all the way moving forward, all the bright things that we can continue with. I think that's, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Rob. Right on time. I was just about to send you a message. So that's perfect. In the midst of time, I will save Q&A just like we said till the end. So in this case, I'll pass it over to our next speaker, Joe Weber. Please take it away.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Joe Weber. I'm a manager of accessibility solutions here at Be My Eyes. And I have two call to actions for everyone on this call today and for this presentation. The one is personal and the second is professional. The first being that after this presentation and after we speak or hear from all the great speakers here today, would love you to go onto your phone and search Be My Eyes in the App Store or Google Play Store. You have an opportunity to totally for free become a volunteer to our global network or even become a user. And as I'll explain, there's an opportunity for both. The second ask, being more professionally, is whether it's your own organization, an organization you work with or know of, or even a store or service you take advantage of. If you realize that this is something that even if you were not blind or low vision yourself, but that there could be a benefit from that organization to provide a service that we provide, which I'll explain, I would love to hear from you. This came from crowdsourcing and it still derives how we find new opportunities, and it wouldn't be done or handled without an incredible community. And that includes the accessibility community at large who I'm speaking to today. So for those of you who don't know, I want to give a quick overview of what is this app called Be My Eyes, how did we come to be, and what are we doing? Now, I'm certainly preaching to the choir when it comes to the actual impact that accessibility can bring globally. But for some context, that even as someone, brother with severe special needs, I thought I was kind of an expert, even in my personal life, of how different disabilities impact people and how widespread it is. But before I came to Be My Eyes, I certainly didn't understand the impact of what is broadly considered blindness. Now, any blind person I know has a different definition of how they define their own sight and how they find the words that make the most sense. We're always looking for the term or the nomenclature that makes the most sense. But the fact of the matter is it's a spectrum, just like vision itself. But what we do know is there are billions of people worldwide who, for either access to medical care or just having poorer vision than standard 20/20 or 20/40, are impacted by vision loss and vision impairments, or like I like to call it, vision challenges, where no matter what your condition or how you live your life, you have an issue where sometimes extra set of eyes would help you. So what happened is about 7 years ago, we're a Danish company and we were founded on a small island in Denmark by our founder, Hans. Hans is actually a wood craftsman by trade. He is not a business person or an entrepreneur, but he just had an idea. He's in his 20s, he was diagnosed with a condition called retinal pigmentosa, meaning his vision has continued to decrease as a smaller and smaller circle or small window of light coming through. So it wasn't until his 40s and really early 50s that he really started needing extra support for his vision. Another thing I didn't realize was that right now, only about 15% of people who are legally blind currently read Braille. Of the 3 people in our small organization who are blind, I don't think Hans, Kelly, or Will are fluent Braille readers, mostly because they didn't lose their vision in some case until they were 19 and as late as in their 40s. So as my colleague Kelly, who didn't go blind until she was in her 40s, says, there is no better time to be blind, but we still have to take technology and make it accessible. And more importantly, it needs to be affordable. So Hans was sitting around his kitchen, and his daughter, who had then moved away and went to university, he found this new trusty tool that was coming up on all iPhones, which was FaceTime. So he was spending a lot of time quite literally calling his daughter, pointing the phone around the room and saying, hey, is my milk expired? Or is this my Be My Eyes t-shirt? Or is this my blue t-shirt? Just simple tasks. And he loved being able to connect to people on the phone, but he realized, why can't I do this at any time without having to necessarily ask family or friends, or maybe there's no way or no one around to help me. So he showed up at an entrepreneurship conference in Denmark, met our CEO, and with a small team of about 3 designers, they created this free mobile app called Be My Eyes, with the idea being you log on, you put in your email, that's all we ask of you, and then you either say, I need visual assistance, or I would like to volunteer. Now, what happens is if I select I need visual assistance, I say what language or languages I speak, and then it knows what time zone I'm in relatively. So I go into this app and I click this button that says call first available volunteer. I press it and it sends out a notification to about 10 to 20 people who have signed up to be My Eyes volunteers. And the first person to accept that call, so you're on your phone, maybe you're taking a lunch break or it's later in the evening, you see you have a Be My Eyes call coming in. You click that call and all of a sudden you're seeing through the rear facing camera of that user's phone and hearing their voice, and you can help them resolve an issue at hand. So this was a very small and humble Danish team that put this app together. And without any marketing advertising budget, the idea just through social media and word of mouth among the blind and low vision community, the app spread like wildfire, where even in the first couple of days of it being live on the App Store, tens of thousands of people were signing up. 1, because it was totally crowdsourced. 2, it was entirely free to use and still is. And number 3, it was creating kind of a unique, very 2020, late 2000s experience, which is online micro volunteering, an opportunity to give back when it's convenient for you. And because we have a ratio of volunteers higher than our actual user base, it made sense that a call would always be answered. In fact, it only usually takes a few seconds for someone to be connected. So fast forward 7 years to today, we have over 5 million people who have signed up to be volunteers and over 300,000 people who have signed up to be users. Now, as you can imagine, early on, a lot of the use cases, so the reasons people were reaching out to our volunteers, was simple around the house things, which was the intention of the application. But as you can imagine, all of a sudden, a group of people who always had problems with customer service, reaching out to representatives from the companies of the products they use, had this one-click solution to help them live their daily lives. And so instead of reaching out to customer service representatives at a company like I might do, being fully sighted and able to navigate the internet, they were just calling Be My Eyes volunteers. And they started asking for help with more complex problems. So they would get a bill in the mail and no one would be home to help them answer it or read it. So they would call a volunteer and be like, hey, how much do I pay this month in utilities? Or they were trying to purchase something online and they'd make the call and say, hey, can you help me put in my credit card information? And we're very lucky that our volunteers are always willing to help. And the way the app is set up, you don't really run into any privacy issues. But a light bulb went off and said, why can't we use this same app interface and same free service to connect our users directly to representatives of companies in addition to those volunteers? So we were at CSUN, the accessibility conference out in California a few years ago, and Microsoft was speaking. And they said, it was their accessibility team. They talked about how they do all these great things to make their products accessible, but they have a really tough time getting user feedback. And our CEO stood up and said, actually, we know what user feedback issues you have, because every time someone has a problem with a Microsoft product or there's an update, they call Be My Eyes. So we created this second service called specialized help, meaning companies large and small of all sizes and industries can use our software to use Be My Eyes as a customer experience channel where users can call in and help resolve issues. And this is how it helped us bring our use cases from everything to large companies like Google and Microsoft. LinkedIn just joined this week, so they'll be helping people set up their profiles, but also smaller companies like in accessible pharmacy or healthcare. So all these different ways we can support organizations. And like many people here, we're always fighting for that business case of why a company should invest in accessibility. And ultimately for us, it comes down to providing a unique customer experience that you really can't find anywhere else. So I know I'm running out on time, happy to answer additional questions. But again, you can look up Be My Eyes on your phone today and become a volunteer entirely for free.
Thank you so much, Joe. That was such a great presentation. And as soon as you said for everyone to download the app, I definitely did it right away. I'm not sure if you see it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I am so surprised at myself that I haven't downloaded this a long time ago. But that's really great. And I'm sure we're going to have lots of questions in the Q&A period. But you did say one important line that really stuck out to me. You said this crowdsourcing effort and how volunteers can volunteer when it's convenient for them. I think that is something that really, like just that line that you said, because being an avid volunteer myself and seeing so many volunteers in the community who want to share back with the community, but timing, it gets difficult. So I'm going to stop there. I want to pass it on to the next speaker, but definitely everyone, if you have any questions, just write in the chat, send your questions away. Next up, we have Maayan Zif. So Maya, please take it away.
Thanks, Zahra. It's a pleasure to be here. Happy National Accessibility Awareness Week. It's so great to hear from Rob and Joe, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what Varun is going to say as well. For those who don't know me, I'm Maayan Ziv. I'm founder CEO at AccessNow, based here in Toronto, hanging out with my vintage Coca-Cola poster in the background. Sometimes people ask me about it. I have quite a collection actually here where I'm staying right now. So that's and I'm wearing a gray shirt and I have brown hair and I am smiling because I'm happy to be here. I was thinking kind of about like, what could I share today that would be different or new or interesting. Last year I had the chance to speak at Enable and had such a great time meeting so many of you, and you asked so many great questions and engaged with me on Twitter as well. So would love to continue the conversation. Obviously we're going to get into some Q&A, but feel free also as I'm speaking, I've got Twitter in the background. I'll see what you're saying. I'm just Maayan Ziv. That's my handle on Twitter. If you use it, I'll see you there. The journey of AccessNow has been a really interesting one. It started very much with my own experience, very similar to a lot of the stories that we're hearing today. I've used a wheelchair since as long as I can remember, and have always really struggled to find places that were accessible to me. And the idea to build a company was not this overnight, like, oh, I have to be an entrepreneur and I have to build a company, but more so was I really felt the need to solve a problem. And I looked out in the world and I saw that no one was doing it. No one was solving this problem, which was like mind-boggling to me. And so, often when people have asked me, like, I have an idea, and I know Varun's going to talk about this, so I won't steal your thunder, but how do I get started and what should I do? I'd say, think about your own life and think about the world that we live in. And there are so many obstacles that people with disabilities still face, so many opportunities to jump in and be part of a solution. And so just before this talk, I was on another call. I'm like on a virtual roadshow this week. But I was just on another talk with the federal government kind of public service school. And we talked about 8 ways to be an ally. And so I put that on my Twitter. You can check it out. But really, if you're looking to get involved, I'd say that the first thing to do is just like start. Even if you don't know what the solution is that you want to build yet, a lot of the time it's just like that process of exploration and determining, where your passion is that you can find the most results. And for me, that was very personal with AccessNow. It started with me wanting to go places and experience the world with less anxiety, with less frustration, just with more answers in my pocket. And I wanted to know what things were accessible to me. And the experience of building community that has come from, the initial need to solve my own problem has been really one of the most inspiring and rewarding reasons that, 5 years in, AccessNow is still running and I'm still here smiling because entrepreneurship is really hard. And building any kind of tech solution is very hard. But when you have such an incredible community as the accessibility community is, it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life. And I think the majority of people who you'll speak to who are working within this space will say the same thing. And so I thought I'd share just like some updates, some stuff that's happening, and ways that, if you're interested in getting involved, you can. We did start AccessNow within a very crowdsourced world. Similar to Be My Eyes, it was like, let's just start something. Let's build a solution and see who's out there, who might be interested in getting involved. And over the last 5 years, we've grown from being, Toronto to Canada to having community engagement in 30 countries around the world. And one of the things we learned, one of the number one questions that I get asked, what's the most accessible city? What's the most accessible company? And the answer is we don't know. And the reason we don't know is because there's no data. There hasn't been any deep dive, massive study to look at, every single accessible coffee shop, every single accessible storefront or hotel or park, or restaurant, or even company at large. No one actually, what we found throughout the work that we've been doing, had the data. And we didn't have that data either. That's why we started crowdsourcing as opposed to a lot of tech companies. What they do is they like plug and play. They find a resource, a database of like traffic information, and they package it into an app, and then they share it with the world, and it helps people find that information with more ease. We had to start from nothing. There was no accessibility data that could help us navigate the world. And that's why we built it for ourselves. And over the course of kind of asking community, what's important to you? What accessibility features do you need in the world? We learned a few things. One, the most important thing is that accessibility means different things to different people. That there's no one expert who can say, this is what accessibility is. I know all the things. I know all the answers. I'm an expert. And if anyone ever tells you that, be very cautious. Because in my opinion, accessibility is an evolving feature, an evolving understanding. And as we grow, as the world continues, we also learn that there are things that we might not have considered as accessibility features that people are benefiting from every single day. And so whether you have a mobility-based disability, whether you're blind or you're deaf, or you have a sensory sensitivity, or honestly, like whatever it is, maybe you sprained your ankle, maybe you fell off your skateboard, at some point in your life, you're going to benefit from accessibility. And so why not give people the platform to tell us what accessibility means? You define your accessible experience. You define your accessible journey. And our job is to listen. And so what we did is we flipped it on its head. We're not telling people what is the most accessible. We're going to let the community decide. And I think for us, that's been one of the most powerful statements of advocacy, very much so. That when we go to conversations with government or businesses, the answer is never, we know the answers. The answer is, as a community, over time, we will get smarter and better and more knowledgeable about what experiences people are having every day. And that every single person on the planet can contribute to that kind of collective knowledge. If you think of Wikipedia and how over time we've learned things about the randomest subjects on the planet, Our goal is, as a global community, to define accessibility together, and that every new person who shows up and adds something else, that contributes just a little bit more insight on things we might not have known, witnessed, experienced, or seen before. So this question of how accessible are our cities, how accessible are our companies, that's the next step for AccessNow. That's what we're really focused on doing. And we're really excited about a new partnership with Accessibility Standards Canada, where we're diving into some of that research, looking at a few major cities in Canada and mapping them entirely. So this is an initiative designed, developed by AccessNow. It's one of the first times we've done this, where we're organizing mapping events and hiring people with disabilities to be our experts. So if it sounds like something you're interested in doing, we're doing a lot of hiring in the next few weeks. It's not public. We haven't shared it yet, but I got the okay to start sharing it officially. We've been waiting, COVID's been really difficult. We wanted to start doing this last year, and I was supposed to be announcing it last year. But obviously people have been at home, and we're taking it step by step. But as things start to open up, as people become vaccinated, we're starting to make our plans now for kind of end of summer, where we're actually going to be back out on the streets using our technology to map our cities. So if it's something it sounds like interesting to you, you're looking for an opportunity to get involved, to be compensated for your time as the expert that you are, definitely connect with us. And you can do that on our website at accessnow.com, or even just send us an email at hello@accessnow.ca. That's the first thing I want to mention. The next thing is that if you're interested in outdoor activities, this is a whole new space that we're super excited about. A few months ago, we announced a partnership with Trans-Canada Trail. A lot of people have been going outside because we can't really go anywhere else. So visiting trails and visiting parks has become kind of like the new thing. The thing that a lot of times people don't consider, the accessibility of those experiences are just as equally important. So getting outside, going for a walk or a stroll has been so important to mental health during this time of lockdown. And how can we begin to understand the accessibility of Canadian trails? So we were super excited to partner with Trans-Canada Trail to start to investigate some of these questions. How accessible are trails for Canadians with disabilities? And if it sounds like something you're interested in, I'd love to get outside. I love to visit trails and parks. Last year, we mapped 12 trails across Canada from coast to coast with the Trans-Canada Trail in partnership with the Canadian Paralympic Committee. And this year we're going back out on the trail and we'll be mapping 25 more trails. So if there are trails that you know about, or you're really interested in getting outdoors and contributing to the work that we're doing, we're looking to engage with people. So in short, basically today, what I'm talking about is a lot of community engagement. The next step for AccessNow is to work with disability advocates, community members, people who want to contribute their time, their expertise, their lived experience directly to our platform to help us grow the knowledge base and also to act as influencers. So it's just like a job interview. You go through the process, and if you're vetted, you're approved, and you can join us, your role is actually to act as an influencer to help people on the platform and throughout the world begin to understand, like, how can I contribute to the platform? What can I do to motivate people to do that as well? So there's a whole series of different roles and job opportunities. A few months ago, I got to share, I guess not even months ago, weeks ago. When was it? Global Accessibility Awareness Day was just like last week. Honestly, in COVID land, who really knows? It was the 20th of May. This wasn't that long ago. We announced kind of this next stage of employment where, we talk a lot about the importance of employing people with disabilities, and equally as important at AccessNow is to make sure that we're actually, practicing what we preach. So the next step for me, it's been something extremely important to me, is to make sure that we're employing people with disabilities as the experts that we are and making sure that we're compensated for that. So this has been kind of like a dream come true, to go from me being on my own, like starting an idea, to getting to the point where I can work with influencers, work with creators, and work with community to actually contribute to the next stage where all of this information gets shared back on the app It also gets shared back with the federal government of Canada to help influence new standards as we look at what accessibility means. And in general, we go from this very grassroots activity of every single person contributing to a platform all the way up to the federal level of government and beyond to start to define what is accessibility for Canadians today. What is it experiences that we can kind of look to measure and get to more knowledgeable statements about how accessible our cities really are for people. So if it sounds like something you're interested in, you can always go to AccessNow and contribute, whenever you feel like it. But if it sounds like something you want to do hardcore, I can say, or if you're interested in joining us as a champion, we definitely want to hear from you. So those are kind of my formal remarks, and I really want to leave time so we can jump into questions. But thanks so much, and really happy to be here.
Thank you, Maayan. That was really informative. I mean, at least for myself, thank you for the updates. And I really appreciate your personal insight that you gave today, especially what motivated you, your insight, especially after being quite a few years in the tech industry. And regarding the accessibility realm itself, I definitely would love to ask you a few questions myself. But again, I'm going to save it till the after our last presenter. We have a specific dedicated Q&A time. Everyone can feel free to send your questions through the chat, or if you want to remain anonymous, you can send them privately to you don't have to send them to everyone. You can send them to me or Heather, and I'll read your questions out loud later. So our next speaker is Varun. Please take it away.
Thank you, Zahra. Hi, everyone. My name is Varun, and I'm the founder of Access to Success and ATS Labs. If I seem a bit nervous, it's because this is a very impressive group of people to follow. I sort of asked the good people at Enable Ottawa to not put me after Maayan Zev of all people. So, but I'm very, very excited to be here. This is a fantastic conference. It's the first time I'm getting the chance to attend this conference. So let me take a step back. I'm originally from India, and I arrived in Canada in 2016 for my MBA at the Rotman School of Management at the University of Toronto. I have a couple of disabilities. I'm hard of hearing, so I rely on a combination of lip reading and live captioning and reading people's body language, believe it or not. I also have something called Erb's palsy, which is a form of partial paralysis in the left arm. And the reason that I'm sharing this is because I didn't care about any of this when I was growing up. I was in India, and in India, you don't really think or talk much about disability. That was my experience anyway. And you just try to pretend you're like everybody else, and you try to do what you gotta do to get by and be successful in a corporate career. That was my goal. That was the extent of my ambition. I just wanted to have a regular, successful corporate career. So I didn't really think much about or even consider at the time getting involved in disability advocacy or anything of the sort. But then I came to Canada. And the first week of my MBA program, there is an orientation week. And there, one of the panelists, who was an alumnus of Rotman, he said something that changed the course of my life. He said, if you see the need for a change around here, now is your time to act on it. You will never get a better time to act on that need than now. And it sort of clicked in my head. Until that point, my entire approach to life, such as it is, was to keep my head down, work harder than everybody else, and just be prepared for the inevitable point where the disabilities that I've been trying to hide do come out into the open. And then the guy says, if you see the need for a change, act on it now. And I thought, I'm in Canada, a country where nobody knows me, where I have no past friends or family. It was a chance for a fresh start. And so I decided to make that fresh start. That fresh start took form in the form sort of an idea, and that idea has Most of the best ideas take place. It happened over drinks with my friends. And that idea was Access to Success. We started Access to Success as a small student club in the beginning to just support Rutman's MBA students who identify as having a disability. I just started small. I had no big goals at the time. And then we grew. The support, the interest that we received was overwhelmingly positive, and it was just astonishing. So we expanded our programming, everything that we've been doing, and as of today, what started as a small student club on our MBA support side of things provides $90,000 in annual scholarships to MBA students with disabilities at 4 of Canada's top business schools. How does all of this relate to assistive technology and innovation? I'm sure many of you might be wondering. And the truth is that we realized that all of the work that we've been doing in this space, we put together a network of people, a network of leaders like Maayan, for example. And that network, the resources that we put together could be put to a lot of new use. The idea came from the fact that I didn't know growing up that I have a disability, that I have a hearing impairment. I was not diagnosed until I was in 11th or 12th grade. So when I did finally get diagnosed, one of my biggest dreams had been to, in the future, have contact lenses, smart contact lenses that would use artificial reality to give me live captioning whenever somebody in front of me speaks. And I realized that that dream of mine is still a ways away, but the resources that we've put together, we could help a lot of other incredible founders working on a lot of other incredible dreams. We could help those founders make those dreams come true. And that's what started as ATS Labs. We piloted that model of providing support, workshop, programming, and resources to accessibility entrepreneurs and accessibility startups in the pilot project in October 2019. That was a 5-day boot camp to see if there is actually people looking for this. And just as with AccessNow, just as with Access to Success, history repeated itself. And the feedback that we received was overwhelmingly positive. Founders, later stage founders would tell me, why did this not exist when I was first starting out? So now we've taken what we did with the 5-day bootcamp and launched Canada's first accelerator for accessibility startups. This is a virtual 3-month program that will launch for the first time this August until this October, and it will provide unique, tailored programming specifically designed to help accessibility, mental health, and agent tech startups scale. That scale, that's the part I want to emphasize. There's a lot of innovation happening in the accessibility space. There's tons of researchers doing some absolutely fantastic work. If you look around in fashion and navigation, there's just so much happening. What we found based on our research was that not a lot of this actually scales across countries, across geographies, and gets into the hands of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. That's the part that we're trying to change, because we've seen scaling is possible. And we're fortunate to be working with a few founders who have done that. Maayan is, of course, one of them. Be My Eyes, funnily enough, is another one of them. So Alexander from Be My Eyes, who's the Chief Customer Officer, is going to be another one of the speakers. And the idea is to support the next generation of accessibility entrepreneurs by helping them learn from those who've been there, done that successfully. So we have over 30 speakers confirmed so far. With the exception of maybe 1 or 2, every single one of those speakers is either a later stage accessibility entrepreneur or an inclusive design practitioner. And when I say inclusive design practitioner, I know we had the morning panel, we talked a little bit about inclusive design, or the speaker did. But the idea is to use inclusive design as a tool, as a methodology to help accessibility startups scale. And that will be taught by people like Christopher Patno, who heads up accessibility and disability inclusion at Google. People like Grace Chun, who's the CEO of OpenStyle Lab, a fantastic organization in the States. And now there's nothing else left to be done except to make sure that word about this gets to the startups who need to know about this. Our applications are already open. We're already receiving those applications. So if you're working on something, if you have an idea that you're thinking of commercializing, if you're already working on a startup, but you're in the earlier stages, pre-seed, seed stage stages, reach out to us. Because just as that phrase that changed my life or the course of my life, if you see the need for a change around here, the time to act on it is now. Well, that's pretty much it. I'm going to be sticking around the entire course of the conference. You can message me on chat, or you can email me if you want to talk to me privately at varun@accesstosuccess.ca. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you, Enable Ottawa, for inviting me today. This has been great, and I'm looking forward to the rest.
Thank you, Varun. That was really informative. Just knowing that there's incubator spaces that help assistive technology kick off is amazing. I want to go now to Q&A, questions and answers. I haven't seen anything come my way personally yet. Heather, if there's something that you've received questions, please just send them directly to me. If anyone has any questions, please just write them up in the chat, or send them personally to me if you want them to be anonymous. In the meantime, I do have some questions I'd like to ask you guys. Very much questions that I believe quite a few in the audience have, very similarly. My first question would be, so regarding that, I think all of you have been in this space for quite some time now, the accessibility space. How do you see the expansion of accessibility solutions through apps and technology in the next, say, 10, 20 years? Is the rise of this technology in this realm exponential or very steady? Do you see a lot of obstacles, or do you see it now as very much all businesses, all organizations are kind of embracing accessibility open arms and wanting everyone to get out there and invent new solutions and ideas to accessibility? So I'd love to hear your insight on that. I can go first to Maayan if you have any insight on that.
Sure. Yeah, happy to answer. It's a good question. I think that over the last few years, what I've seen, just from being in this space, is this momentum building for sure. I remember a few years ago when I started, I was looking around and there weren't that many examples to point to, and there weren't that many massive swings that I could say, like, here are big companies taking leadership positions, and we are seeing that change. There are organizations like Microsoft, for example, with the CEO kind of bringing in personal experiences and talking about disability in a new light that really helps to shift the market. Or you think about kind of the initiative called the Valuable 500, and them finally reaching their goal of 500 corporations making a commitment towards accessibility and disability. And you start to understand that, like, these steps all add up, and they make this kind of, like, what I call like a rumble louder and more prevalent. And it's inevitable that we're going to get to a day where, with the use of tech, but just in general, accessibility influences the way that we do our work, the way that we live our lives, whether you have a disability or you don't. This is the next step. If you think about how the environmental movement started as like this fringe effort of, some people saying, oh, well, I'm going to carry around a water bottle, and people are like, why? That's so inconvenient. Now we've completely come around where it's an obvious thing that every single person on the planet recognizes a responsibility towards. Every company is incentivized, not just legally, but also in the way that they brand themselves and the competitive advantage that they can lean on when they talk about their commitments to environmental movements. And so for me, accessibility is really that next frontier. And we're seeing, all of these kind of smaller initiatives from the ground, from people with disabilities starting on their own with supports, from incubators like Varun's and grant opportunities, that the federal government has recently kind of offered here in Canada, and organizations, and projects that come out of universities that are starting to pick up. And then at the other end, you've got the federal government making really big steps on standards, and you've got companies with greater leadership stakes. So in general, I think, yes, this is growing. It's picking up a lot of momentum. And also, if you just look at the climate of, what does it mean to be included? How people are using social media to highlight voices of people who have been marginalized. People with disabilities are the largest marginalized group in the world. Mm-hmm. I don't even think we have yet recognized our power. And I think one of the biggest difficulties is that not every person who is part of the disabled population identifies as part of the disabled community. And that switch between just existing and contributing to a momentum of advocacy and change is probably one of the most powerful things that could happen. I love when I meet someone who says, oh, wait, I can make a difference. And I think that's what, this talk is all about. It's people who have recognized the ability to make a difference. If every single person did that, we would outpower numbers like you wouldn't believe. So it's just a matter of time, and it's initiatives like these ones and events like these that help people come into that conversation. I talked a lot, sorry.
No, not at all. That was really insightful. Thank you so much, Maayan. I think, Varun, I saw your hand come up.
Yeah, if I can add to that. So since we're in the accelerator and incubator space, it's sort of part of our job to keep an eye out on the market trends here. So I just wanted to share some of the research that we've done in this space. We noticed over the last year, mental health took off for obvious reasons, which was the pandemic. There was the amount of progress that happened in the mental health space, which is sort of related, obviously, to the disability and accessibility space, was absolutely tremendous. In Canada, we saw Inkblot Therapy just exited via acquisition by Green Shield Canada, which is absolutely fantastic. It means that there is light at the end of the tunnel for a startup in terms of an exit. In the States, the amount of money that's being plowed into the mental health space by venture capitalists is nuts, to use a technical term. Then, with the implementation of AODA, ACA, and the corresponding law in the States, digital accessibility startups are now taking off and raising substantial funding. So we have, for example, a startup called Stock in the States, which provides accessible plugins for a design tool called Figma. They are gaining a ton of popularity. Closer to home, in Canada, Essential Accessibility, a Canadian startup, raised $55 million recently from KKR, the private equity firm. So there's a ton happening in the mental health and digital accessibility. From what we are seeing, our belief is that if this group, the people listening here right now, if we play our cards right, the rest of the accessibility world is next. That's why I guess we are here.
Thank you, Varun. We have quite a few questions coming in from the audience. But Varun, since you were just talking, we have a question for you. So how would an entrepreneur engage with you? Varun, sorry, you're muted, I think.
Sorry, I didn't follow the question.
Oh, so the question is, how would an entrepreneur engage with you? So if someone had a startup, they want information, support, resource from you.
For sure, for sure. Sorry, I have quite a bit of a delay in the captions here, so I apologize for that. Um, if you're an early stage startup, you can apply via our website, atslabs.ca, which would you can sort of apply for the inaugural program, the inaugural accelerator, submit the application, and we'll be in touch. If you're a later stage startup, if you've seen some success and you're confident you don't need our help, great. Then we have founders who need your help. So reach out to us one way or the other in this space. If you're in this space, we'd love to work with you. You can reach out via our website or direct to me at Varun at accesstosuccess.ca.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Rob, there's a question for you. Contactless access. Does the tool have a voice output or voice command option?
So using the built-in tools that are involved in iOS and Android, it will speak to you about which the buttons are. There isn't a voice tool yet as far as controlling it with your voice, but it's something we've discussed. It depends on the environment. It's one of these, voice control is really nice in a quiet environment with few people. It's when there's lots of people around it, it becomes a challenging mechanism. When everybody wants to go to floor 15, 12, 11 all at the same time, it can be a little burdensome there.
Great. Thanks, Rob. Maayan, we have a question for you. So what is involved in mapping the Trans-Canada Trail?
Yeah, great question. So mapping trails was a new project for us that we started just about a year ago in partnership with Trans-Canada Trail. It was really about, beginning to understand some of the barriers that people might expect or experience on the trails, as well as letting people know what trails are actually accessible to them so that they can go out and, explore the outdoors. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we were able to pull from our kind of current AccessNow platform. And trails aren't yet live on our platform, but they will be this spring. So we'll be launching that pretty soon, actually. And basically what we've done is we've, similarly to how people can go to a place and review it on the AccessNow app, you can do the same thing with trails. The difference is that we started adding some new functionality. So for example, a lot of the things on trails are not based on a place, but on something that you might come across along the way. So you might notice a bench or a picnic table or an access point. So we kind of expanded our definition of like some of the features you might look for and how those things might be accessible as well. So it really goes similarly in terms of rating a place based on a level of accessibility to you, and then followed by kind of outlining the criteria or things that you see. So we've got like a checklist. The way that we've done it so far is that we have kind of paired up with experts that actually went out and shared their own experiences to help us map the lines, to get an idea where we might see what access points, where are the bridges, where are the steps, all the like concrete stuff that's there on the ground. And then we've opened it up to community to contribute their own reviews based on that and see, what else did we miss or what else did we learn? So that's kind of an evolving partnership that we're really excited about over the next few years. And the first kind of 12 trails will be live within the next few weeks, actually. So we're really excited about it.
Thank you, Maayan. I think we have just about 3 more minutes left. I'll go ahead and ask one more question, hoping we have time for it. And I know this question has come up to me before from other individuals. So the question is, how hard is it to sort of break into the accessibility industry regarding funding and getting investor support? So it could be someone who's starting right from the ground up or is in the space already but trying to grow. So I know Be My Eyes seems to have been growing or continues growing, same with AccessNow and other companies. What would your take be on this?
Yeah, absolutely. For a long time in the early history of Be My Eyes, when we were reaching out to investors to get a little more capital, um, their biggest question was, okay, you have hundreds of thousands of users and millions of volunteers. Why don't you just charge a very small fee to use the service? That was the low-hanging fruit that most investors wanted at that time, especially early in our product. Thanks to our leadership, they held fast that the free nature for the actual people using the service was the reason why we are compelling and useful, and they held true to that. And because of doing so, when we came to Microsoft and Google and pitched this idea of specialized help to have them pay to be on the platform, which is now our business model, because we had stuck to our guns on that and built a community, we unlocked a very important thing that I think can be relevant to any organization or entrepreneur in here, which is the trust and the usability of the people actually benefiting from the service has to come before what that actual revenue is. At the same time, Microsoft and Google, just for two examples, are more than capable of creating their own app interface that does exactly what Be My Eyes does. We are not really novel in actual technology. What we are novel in is that we have a community that trusts our service. So especially when you see some of the news happening, especially in the blind low vision space, with some quote unquote quick fix software solutions for screen readers and making things accessible, they tried to you can't really reverse engineer this type of product. So I would definitely say, one, there are traditional VC firms, not even ones that specialize in accessibility, that will be interested if you have that community following, which is exactly what happened to us. We are the only accessible tool for one of our biggest funders, which is Cultivation Capital, based in St. Louis. And the reason they have us on board is to break into that accessibility field. But always think about, okay, we do accessibility, but what else do we do? It's the brand you're creating. It's what a company or organization can tell. And you have to think externally about what is actually the benefit besides just that individual being helped. So even terms like discoverability, usability, other terms that also make sense for a customer experience can really help you move the dial forward when it comes to funding.